Conor O'Neill here from Everyday Athlete, where we work with everyday athletes who want to pursue their athletic goals in endurance running, strength training, physique change, and sport. In this podcast, my guests and I discuss principles, strategies, and stories that may help you in pursuit of your own athletic goals and in your life outside of that too. I was thinking about when we would have first come into contact, and I actually think it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago now, when you would have been a nutrition coaching client of mine, and I was looking back then at the documents and the check-ins and stuff like that just there this morning, and I was going, oh my God, and I was so embarrassed by how amateur everything looked. But I think that's normal enough for like 6 or 7 years later of a coaching program, and it's probably more of a good sign. But regardless of that, I was thinking then from where you were at that point to where you are now, and how much, just looking at from afar, how much business has grown for you, and even your athletic pursuits and everything else. Big changes between now and then, but everything then and now. But what I was wondering about that then was with the social media side of things, the business side of things, and also the athlete side of things, I would imagine there is both advantages in that for someone looking on at social media, it's probably good for them to see you as a player and to have the faith that you know what's involved, you know their struggles, etc. But I would imagine on the flip side of that, there could be potential issues of, players, teammates, managements wanting to keep things to themselves, and maybe being wary of boundaries of, or you being wary of boundaries of sharing things that might include teams and stuff like that. And I'd imagine also opposition members potentially taking the mick a little bit of someone putting stuff out on social media. But I was wondering how your experience of that whole side of managing both aspects of athlete, coach, and I suppose business owner have been in those senses.
Yeah, it's definitely been an evolution, all right. Like I was even thinking of before, whenever you messaged me, I was like, right, how long ago was that? And just thinking as you say, where I was then compared to where I am now, like it's mad, like the difference. But I suppose the challenges, we chat about it all the time. With the backdoor cut, like we chat about that challenge of trying to get players to overcome that. It's almost like it's frowned upon for players to almost like put themselves out there and kind of go outside the group, especially in the GAA circle. So it is challenging at times, and I suppose early on I probably would have felt like maybe the odd one out, like where you were out posting stuff. And I remember in our Senegal senior team, like you would have got plenty of comments and you would have got told to rein it in or whatever, like but then as sort of time goes on, more and more people are doing it. It's more like, right, okay, this is the norm these days, this is what people are doing. So like you still get some of it, but I think as a person you get more comfortable with that, then you realise like this is what needs to be done for me to keep moving forward from a business standpoint and from an impact standpoint as well. Like you don't want to be the world's best kept secret. If you have a solution there for athletes and want to help athletes, like you need to get the name out there, and that helps. So you still get elements of wanting to be wary of it, but I think that comes with, it depends on the sort of stuff that you are putting out as well. I think as a player you're going to be smart enough not to go revealing all secrets or who's playing who or what's going to happen. But I think a lot of teams are doing the same sort of stuff anyway, so you're not giving massive amounts away, but there's obviously some stuff that's said in confidence that you keep within the group. But yeah, definitely more comfortable with it, I suppose, as I've grown and I suppose matured a wee bit too. Like you kind of take it in your stride a wee bit, like, and it's just a part of daily life now, like.
Yeah, I was talking to Daniel Davey for the last episode, and he spoke a little bit about that as well, of the not wanting to be seen as, this idea of an influencer, but also using the platforms for what they're there to be used for. And we sort of spoke about the key being just that you're not losing your integrity with it. And he said as long as he said for him, as long as he felt he was keeping within the areas that he was sort of had expertise in, and he was staying within an evidence base and putting out content that was helpful for people. It's very different than putting out stuff that's just random products that you obviously don't use yourself, and there's a big distinction. I think, as you say as well, the people outside of social media and business are becoming a little bit more aware that you're not putting stuff out there just for the sake of your own vanity and followers. It's actually a business, and in the same way as they might have a job that where they're looking to move up the ranks, the same thing is true for someone who's posting stuff on social media.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned there as well you'd mentioned the club there, St. Galls, and when you were coming through, I suppose, underage and teenage years, St. Galls would have been a big team, winning all counties and Ulsters and even All Irelands, and it was around the same time where I would have been with Crossmaglen, or where I would have been coming up through the ranks for Crossmaglen. We're in the same positions of winning counties, winning Ulsters and All Irelands, and probably coming up against St. Galls as well within those time periods. But I know for me that had a great impact on my ambitions in the sporting sense and seeing what it took to perform at those high levels. And I'm wondering, for you growing up in that environment and seeing those aspirational figures, do you think that had an impact on your ambitions and dedications then down the line to your own sport?
100%, yeah. I remember it probably started earlier, like just from a whole GAA standpoint. Like my daddy's from Uma in Tyrone, so it would have been like growing up. Like I was born in '99, like so growing up early 2000s. Tyrone were winning a couple of Irelands, and I was going down the road with him, going to watch his training, going to watch his games. So he was still playing at the time, like, and that was in my initial like, right, this is how serious football is, sort of thing. And then obviously playing with St. Galls then underage. St. Galls very successful, winning county championships, as you say, and then the Ulsters, even the All Ireland campaigns, going and watching them, being in Croke Park. I actually played at half time in Croke Park in in the 2010 All Ireland final, like, so it was like, right, it almost felt like this is the norm, sort of thing, which is mad because since I've been senior we haven't been anywhere near a final since, like, but yeah, like watching those teams growing up, and then even being in and around the teams when you were underage, you were on the bike collecting the balls and kicking them back out at training or going to matches or whatever it was, and you got to know the players, you got to see what they were like, and you almost felt part of it then. So yeah, when you saw that, you saw the buzz, you saw like the level that some of them lads were at, and the quality of some of them. You're just like, right, this is what you want to push on to, and that was near enough the priority at times. You're like, right, football is the be all end all. So I suppose seeing that glimpse of success and seeing what was going on, and like, right, this is what I can go on and be a part of, like, so that was definitely a big part of it, like, but I suppose just that upbringing of like GAA family, just going watching games, seeing it all the time, and then yeah, just always wanting to improve and wanting to get that bit better and try and play at the highest level. That was the seeing that success was the big driver, but yet to experience much of it myself now.
Yeah, well, we've had your success in other ways as well, and even playing with the county and moving up to that level as well. And yeah, obviously, maybe haven't yet seen maybe the heights of what you would like to aspire to play with, or the level you aspire to play out with them. Still being a part of that, any county setup is going to be a massive jump in terms of the commitment needed, the dedication, the levels of efforts required. And I know there's a lot of talk these days about the high levels of commitment and dedication required at the county level, and that for a lot of people would be an extreme negative thing, or seen as an extreme negative thing, whether that's some people feeling like it's ruining the nature of the game and the amateur aspect with the levels of enjoyability. But then I've also talked to players who have not had those problems of, obviously the sacrifices required are there, but they haven't seen it as a negative thing necessarily. It's almost what would you say, like an honour to play at that level, and also to be in such a high performance environment is something that they thrive in, and maybe don't have the same feelings about the professionalism required because they're enjoying being in it. And then you'll obviously have the other players who maybe have had to bow out because they weren't able to commit to that. And I wonder what your experience of that has been in terms of the dedication versus, I suppose, the enjoyability of it.
Yeah, I've probably been on both sides of it, to be honest. Whenever I first went in like the end of 2018, start of 2019, like I wasn't mature enough for it, and I wasn't ready for that commitment. You were in doing a bit of nutrition with us as well at that stage.
That's right. Yeah.
And I wanted to be there, and I enjoyed sort of the idea of being there, but when it actually came to doing what needed to be done to be at that level and thrive at that level, I wasn't ready for it. I was still like my mates. I was still happy enough of like running about with mates, going out at the weekend, that sort of thing, playing decent level of club football, and just the overall commitment and what needed to go into it to get the most out of it. I just wasn't ready for it. But then on the flip side, when I did step away, took a bit of time out, I realised right that's where I wanted to be. And then now that I've been back in, I've been holding myself to that standard. And each year I've been sort of building on that and getting closer and closer to like fulfilling my potential, I suppose. So um I can definitely say when you're in that bubble and you're in that circle, you when you go to commit to that, like you understand what the commitment is, and when you're inside it, you kind of enjoy it because it almost does become like a wee bubble, and everyone's pushing themselves, everyone's trying to get the absolute most out of themselves. So you almost like enjoy the challenge of it, and yeah, like when you're there, you're in that environment and think even when things aren't going as well. When things are going well, it's really enjoyable. But even when things aren't going so well, like you're kind of looking at the outside, you're going like, sure, what else would it be at anyway?
Mm.
And you just there's that just enjoyment factor of just trying to push yourself and play at the highest level. Like so, yeah, like sometimes don't get me wrong, there is a bit of well, I suppose I've seen a bit of flexibility in that, right? In the background to have like I'm training like if there's no question whether I'm going to get the training or do the work or whatever, so you do get a wee bit of leeway at times and that, right, listen, I can't make a collective gym session or whatever it is, but as long as the work's been done, it's kind of that kind of helps a wee bit. But for the most part, you know what you're working towards, you know what you're trying to achieve, so you know the commitment levels that kind of come with that, and that's what you're signing up for at the end of the day.
Yeah, which can be, I suppose, a little bit easier when you're seeing the outcomes of it. If you're getting to, if you're winning matches, obviously as well, and if you're getting to, see the work you're putting in displayed on the pitch, but that sort of can be difficult in the position where injury comes along. And I know that, or I believe that you're in that current position right now where injury is, let's say, getting in the way of your ability to actually be a part of the teams you want to, or the team you want to be in, and still having to probably put in the levels of commitment in terms of your training and your nutrition and everything else, but not getting a chance maybe to express that. Has that been difficult? Have you had an experience of that before? And how have you gone about, I suppose, mentally coping with that more than anything?
Yeah, difficult. Yeah, it definitely has been. But it's kind of been a blessing in disguise at the same time. Like there's been probably coming up probably the off season last year when we were doing the sort of winter training. I think this is maybe natural enough of a lot of players to think the same thing. But you're going through the winter slog, you're kind of going like, what's the point in all this? Like, what am I doing this for? That sort of thing. But I kind of felt like that a few times, and it was like, right, is this the be all end all? Should it be here? That sort of thing. But got through it anyway. Got the point in the year. I was like, right, this is worth it. But then I suppose there was just that element in my head of like, right, at some point I want to take a bit of a step back, see what else is going on, and then maybe come back in. So the fact that I've kind of been forced to take a bit of a step back this year and kind of going, right, well, at least I have the opportunity now to, like, the decision's kind of been made for me. I can go do a wee bit of traveling, experience other things outside that, and see what life would be like outside of it. But at the same time, when you're watching on and you're seeing, the lads are playing at Croke Park there, you're just like, right, that's where I want to be, and that's where I want to get back to. In terms of experiencing it before, like, not really. Like, I've had a few wee niggles here and there, but nothing massive. Back in school, I had like a blood problem. I was out of football for like 7 months, and that felt like the end of the world. Like, but since then, touch wood, I've been good. But yeah, at the minute we're extended period of time out, so I've got 3 games this year. I've been on and off probably the last 2 seasons just with the same recurring hamstring trouble. But yeah, I suppose mentally it's grim when you're watching games and you just don't feel part of it at all. When you're doing your own work, you're doing your own rehab, it can be a bit lonely at times, but I think I've been pretty good in like flipping the perspective and seeing it as an opportunity for other things in terms of being able to go on a few trips, having a wee bit more control of my schedule, having a bit more time and energy to put into other things. So it's like anything, there's ups and downs with it, but I think I've been handling it pretty well. I think the main thing is because it's been so recurrent, it's been on and off. I think I knew in the back of my head at some stage I was going to have to take an extended period of time to get it right. So I'd say if it had just happened out of the blue like that, I think it would definitely be a lot more challenging. So I think it was just chipping away, and then it finally hit me as like, right, I need to take a longer term approach to this. Like,
And then even with yourself being, well connected and knowing obviously a huge amount about the the physiology and the training element and rehabbing and everything else, and also having a network that would have a lot of that knowledge as well, and you probably have access to the biggest experts in those things as well. How do you go about, I suppose, sourcing where you're going to get that information from? Because I know that a lot of players will have access maybe to a team physio and that's about it, and whether that physio is going to be of high enough quality or have the bandwidth to be able to take them through a full rehab process. How do you look at that and say, who am I going to go to? Am I going to go to a load of people and take their opinions together? Am I going to commit to one approach? Am I going to take this on myself and take full control of it? Or how are you approaching that?
yeah, it's been a tricky one, and I've probably come into all those brackets at some stage, like, and taken all those approaches. Um, Initially it was like, right, going with it was with the team physio. We got a new JC came in with us last year, maybe the year before. But before that, we had sort of different physios coming and going, and never really had like full consistency. So I was always going to my own physio outside of that, and things were going good there. Things were going steady. And then I was going pretty well. I was going injury free, and then yeah, I suppose it was probably that it was like misdiagnosed by a different physio that had only been to once. So probably I should have been pushing for a scan and I didn't get the scan, and then all the symptoms was leading just to like a hamstring tendinopathy, and everyone was saying the same sort of thing. So it's just consistently doing the same work, but then ended up at the same place. And I don't think that was down to like any one person. I think it was just because it was misdiagnosed basically. Since then it's been working, given time to the one physio, working on that for a while, and then whenever the issues popped up again, I was like, right, I think it was maybe like the third or fourth time it had flared up, and I was just like, right, I've been doing the same thing over and over. It gets good for a point, end up back at square one. I want to try something different, try a fresh approach, and then just with the sort of circles that I'm in, there's a girl, Alice Lochran, well, just got married there, Alice Keenan, I think now. She got recommended a few times by a few people, so I was like, right, I'll go down here, suss out, see what the story is. And then just a mixture of that, and then sort of Alan Murdoch, who I've worked with in his mentorship, just even getting his sort of input and stuff and seeing what the story is, and just, yeah, that's kind of the approach then, where you're taking wee bits and pieces, seeing what people are saying, trying to put it all together, but then you run the risk of taking too many opinions on board, and then you're sitting there with everyone's telling you something different, and it can be head frying at times. But I think at the minute it's take one opinion, go with it, and yeah, that's the approach at the minute.
Yeah, so hard. It's like you would think someone looking at you who has access to maybe one physio, that is with the team or whatever. And they don't know where to go. Might look at you and say, well, look, he has all access to all the information. He has access to anyone he wants to go to, or whatever, and knows who to go to. But actually, you have the opposite problem as well of saying, I could go to so many people and I'm sure they all have good solutions, but if I take something from one person, something from another person, they could actually be counteracting each other. And I'm sure that's difficult as well. But I suppose the one you mentioned a little bit there, mentorship and people that you've learned from, and I know the one area it seems just from looking on that you have put a lot of time into education and that you focus on a lot with the guys you work with is the speed side of things. And without, I suppose, making it a masterclass on acceleration and speed and change of direction and all that, with players that you've worked with or just in general, seeing players, what do you think has been the main either mistakes or the main misunderstandings about training for speed, and probably specifically training for speed within GAA?
Yeah, there's so much you could go into, but I think the biggest one, when you break it down, like to the bare basics, they're like players aren't sprinting regularly enough to actually get the speed improvements. Like they might think that they're sprinting, they're doing high intensity stuff in training, but it's not actual true speed work. It's like repeat high intensity stuff, but there's a lot of fatigue. You're not getting the full recovery, and the more reps that you do, you're obviously the quality is going to go down. So I'd say that's the biggest one. So I think a lot of players would literally just benefit from getting to the pitch at least once per week before team training. 30-40 minutes early, doing a bit of a warm up, doing a couple of drills, and then getting the few quality speed efforts with full recovery in between. I think that would be the biggest thing. Outside of that, I think GAA players just love training and love to think more is always better. So it's just hammering more work, more work, more work. Whether that's in the gym, whether it's on the pitch, whether it's conditioning, it seems to be, go hard in the gym, do lots of conditioning, neglect speed. That's the biggest thing. And I know now people are coming around to doing a lot more speed, but then it's like, right, are you doing too much? Or is it not enough rest? Is the quality good enough? So I'd say that's, between just not actually giving time to speed, giving it the right sort of rest period and attention it deserves probably be the biggest thing. And then maybe just being too caught up in the gym side of things and conditioning, because that's what you come out feeling like you've done something from. But yeah, I think just giving it the time it deserves in the week and getting that in consistently over a period of time, and not just doing it for a couple of weeks, maybe not seeing massive improvements because it takes longer to improve than maybe seeing a couple of kilo going on a bar. But being consistent with that year round, year after year, like that's the biggest thing I'd say.
Yeah, it's hard for lads as well, and it's the same with the gym work, because I think a lot of people are afraid of adding in stuff that they know is going to benefit them long term, but they think will in the short term take away from their freshness for pitch sessions and matches. But the doses or the poison is in the dose as such, I think, and also the fact that as you said, speed work has to be specifically speed, full rest, which will obviously induce some fatigue, but you can easily manage that by just starting off at extremely low volumes, and by not making the fatigue from the metabolic costs of doing high intensity, low rest type training. And I think that people building it up over time is probably the way to manage that. It's the same with the gym work as well, like keeping the volume extremely low at the start if it's something that you're trying to introduce especially in season, which is very counterintuitive for a lot of people. I think it's you see a gym session, you automatically think, I'm going to do 3 or 4 sets of 5 to 10 reps, whatever it is, and if you don't do anything else, it's not a gym session. But the simple thing of saying, no, you could actually just do 1 to 2 sets, and that's a lot better than not doing it at all.
100%.
Yeah. So I suppose, but then the technical aspect of speed as well. Is there anything you can give as like a foundational aspect to what technical things people should be looking at with their sprint or with their acceleration that might help?
Yeah, 100%. So anytime I'm looking at technique, it comes back to what I learned when I was working with Speedworks. I did their mentorship, and then I was also coached by them for like 11 months, and that was where I learned the most. Like when it's hands on, I'm involved in the process, like I'll learn far more that way. But anytime I'm looking at sprinting, I'm looking at like 3 key areas. I'm looking at like your projections or like orientations, like what direction is the body going, like where are your hips, where's the upper body, where are the legs in relation to the ground. Projection, switching, so like how you actually move your legs, both upright when you're at max speed and in acceleration, and then like reactivity, like how you actually interact with the floor and how you transfer and force through the floor. So in that, like in acceleration, obviously we're starting off nice and low, hips are low, body's in that forward position, and we're gradually getting taller as we go through the run. Then obviously with the switch in the legs, it's more sort of forward and back. You're punching that knee in front of you, attacking down and back into the ground. And then as you get more upright, then it becomes more like cyclical type movement, almost like a high knee run. So it's focused on getting into those good positions, and then when we're actually hitting the ground, then making sure that we're landing in the right part of the foot, rather than landing with that heel in front of the body, which is actually slowing you down, and not quite landing up in the tiptoes, like finding sort of somewhere in between where you're landing in that midfoot. So you're going to be stiff, you're going to be reactive, you're going to spring off the ground and not be on the ground for too long. So yeah, looking at switching, reactivity, and like projection or orientation is the main thing I'm looking at. But I suppose the big thing is just like, if you break it down into real simple terms, like as we in acceleration, we want to be fast, like we want to have big powerful steps in the first few steps, but you want each step to get faster after that. You want to quicken up the speed of your cycle, the speed of your switch, step after step, and gradually get taller. And then whenever we are tall, you want to be tall through the hips, focus on a nice fast leg turnover, attacking the ground, and just sort of the best way to describe it is like creating big shapes that you can snap out of quickly. That's Alan Murdoch summed it up really simply for me, and I was like, right, that just makes a lot of sense. So I suppose max speed, probably being tall, getting that knee in front of the body, being able to snap out of that quickly and attack the ground. And then in acceleration, focusing on being forward, punching that knee in front of you, and then aggressively getting that foot back into the ground. So I think hitting that ground with intent is a big thing, but then also the speed of switching the legs is probably the two of them sort of blend together really nicely.
I think that's useful for people to know, because I know that quite often players don't even have those concepts in their head of, I suppose, the difference between what you'd be focusing on in acceleration and at top speed, and even knowing that what you're trying to do in acceleration is more so move forward, and at top speed is to, I suppose, keep going forward or keep from slowing down, I suppose, rather than actually trying to stay in that forward moving position the whole time. But there is so much, I suppose, to that you can get into outside of that as well. So you obviously have then the bringing that into game situations as well, and how that transfers over. Is there do you find that by practicing it in isolation in itself, it naturally carries over, that you're able to do these things in the game, or is that something that you would be, I suppose, intent with actually putting yourself in situations that are game sort of specific, that you're still able to focus on those things? Because when a ball's coming at you, the last thing you want to be thinking about is like high knees or quick feet or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. So I suppose there's an element of both. Like if you look at, the 4 stages of learning, like when you're like at that sort of complete beginner stage, you don't even, it's that unconscious incompetence, like you don't even know that there's something you should be working on, and then you go to that unconsciously competent where you're like, right, okay, I'm trying to work on this, or I know there's something that I need to be working on, but I'm not just quite sure where it is, which is probably where most GAA players fall into. And then there's that like consciously competent, where they're like focusing on something when they're thinking about it alone in training, they can get into pretty good positions. And then eventually we get to that mastery stage where it's just like second nature and you're just not even thinking about it. So there's definitely an element of that, but I do feel your training needs to progress after a while to like in-game scenarios. I feel like in person it's a lot easier to do that and put them in sort of in-person scenarios, but I feel online it can be a bit more challenging. But then it's like if we drill and we practice it enough consistently over a period of time, it will start to creep over. But when it comes to games, like one thing that I always think of is like, if you're playing the way the game's played these days, you're up and down. So chances are some stages in the game, you're probably going to have to track back for a good 50, 60, 70 metres and just literally run the straight line. If that's the case, you can probably think about it a wee bit more, but once you're sort of on the ball or you're worried about where your man is or where your player is, like you're probably not going to think about it as much. So again, it's making sure that you've done enough in your training so you're not coming to the game thinking about it. You're confident that it's just sort of looking after itself.
Same with any level of skill acquisition. I think it's even if people, someone's playing golf and wanting to improve their swing, the idea is you're thinking about it a lot and you're cueing yourself within, say, the driving range session or whatever, and then ideally you want to be in a position where you're not thinking about it at all when you're actually playing. You're thinking about the target. But you could probably, as well as obviously practicing it over time and ingraining those things, which will definitely carry over, probably even within your warm-ups, say for a match, maybe priming yourself and having those cues and just hoping, or it's not necessarily hoping, it's having faith that will carry over to being in the match itself, I think, as well. With the speed side of things, would you say you were naturally predisposed to be fast and that's led you into that area, or is it more of a case that you weren't originally and have been having to work on it, or is it a strength versus weakness type thing?
Probably would have been more of the explosive type, in fairness. Probably, like if to sum it all up, I probably like underage and stuff, I probably would have been like okay in every area. Like probably would have been fast enough, fit enough, but not like top of the pack by any means. And then it was just like the interest of it, the enjoyment of it. I first went to like I would have seen bits and pieces. I would have seen people doing stuff like online, and just would have like looked at the athletic stuff and like that's class. It looks unreal. And then I went to a Sam Portland workshop, I think in like 2017, 2018, and I was like, right, that was the first time I was exposed to it. I was like, this stuff is class. And then just went down the rabbit hole of it. Started training that way. Started seeing the benefits of it myself, and I think I just knew myself there was more to training and more to S&C than just lifting weights in the gym, like, and maybe doing a few plows and a few jumps. And then it was just going through different coaches and that's when I started to realise, right, people are actually just the more that I saw it happening, the more I was aware of it, and it was like, right, this is something I want to go into. And I think just that enjoyment aspect of it, and enjoying that way of training, enjoying how I felt with it, and wanting to get my speed up, like that was a big thing. Like, so yeah, mixture of both. Probably I suppose my body type and genetics or whatever would maybe lend me to being more of a sort of explosive type athlete. But then that's also been then improved with the style of training and the way that I've been training over the last wee while as well.
It's always an interesting question that you chat with mates about, or even with athletes, is if you weren't brought up with the sport that you're in, and you just had to go off what you were genetically predisposed to be as an athlete, what sport or athletic event do you think you would have been naturally gifted for?
That's a tough one. As I say, it was probably like middle of the pack. Like, probably, could have put up a decent. I don't know. When I actually think about the standards, I was going to say maybe in around sort of like middle distance. Don't know if it was fast enough to be a pure sprinter. Didn't have the endurance to go into the longer stuff. Probably too heavy to go into the longer stuff as well. But that sort of mid zone, like, I'd probably blow out after a K or so. But I don't know. I think, if looking at the way things are going now, looking at this whole hybrid athlete stuff, like, I think that would be my next answer. Like, if it was to finish my football, it'd be like, right, kind of build up a bit of running, kind of get really fit, kind of get strong in the gym, and build a bit of muscle, but also be able to move well. Like, I think just being that sort of all rounder. I think that's kind of the way GAA is at the minute too. Like, you almost have to be an all rounder. You have to be fast, you have to be fit, you have to be well conditioned, and you have to have a decent bit of size on you. Maybe not as much these days, but you still have to be able to get up and down the pitch at pace and repeat that. So I'd say that's a bit of a cop-out answer. Can't put an exact.
That's usually how the conversation goes. It's like you put out a few different scenarios, because you have guys who are clearly made to be like powerlifters or Olympic lifters, to just these fast twitch like guys, and then you've the likes of myself who are like, yeah, you're meant to be like a runner or something. It's like, and then somewhere in between as well. I think that, as you said, that types of, I think CrossFit obviously sort of was the start of that more blend of all modalities, but I think probably the High Rocks is. I talked with Conleth McAlinden about this when we had him on, and he was talking about, or we were talking about, where he was saying he's a lot more genetically predisposed to gain strength, and has focused a lot more on it than I had, and I was saying the opposite of, I'd be genetically predisposed towards more endurance, and have worked on it more, and we were sort of debating which you would prefer to be if you had, say, 6 months to a year to train for High Rocks or CrossFit. I sort of decided with High Rocks, because there's that bit more running. You'd rather be fit, as long as you have sort of a prerequisite strength there. For CrossFit, I think it is a lot more strength based, even though it's very metabolically demanding from a fitness point of view. But it's just interesting. What's that?
I'd say it's a lot more technical as well. I think I would be. I just either of them, my lower back would be hanging out of me. I was trying to everything the lower back, like. But I'd say if it was I'm watching that sprint on Netflix at the minute, like, and if watching that, it's like I wanna go into sprinting, like, I would love to do that, but I can't see myself hitting 11, 12, 13 meters per second.
You never know. It's crazy, isn't it? Like, when you look at the speeds those guys are putting up, but it'd be interesting. And who was it talking about on a previous episode as well, where I was saying, it was Dan Reeve, and I was saying to him about how great of a sport and country Ireland would be if GAA wasn't the sort of only sport. And that's not to say GAA doesn't deserve to be the only sport, or isn't, absolutely brilliant, but you can imagine, like, the soccer team, maybe that, because I'm sure lads who were in county teams who would have been, Premier League footballers. I know I probably do as well, and lads who turned down trials to play, for the county. Turned down trials for Premier League teams to play for a county GAA. And maybe if you were in, say, a big city, maybe if you were in Dublin, or even I don't know, maybe it's the case of Belfast, where there maybe is a little bit more access to track and field and stuff like that, but in any rural part of Ireland, that you're going to really struggle to have opportunities to get into those type of things.
Yeah, big time, big time. Like there's even a couple, one or two boys in the county team, like, and you just see them in the park. I don't know if they've done much speed work, like, but they're just pure like boys hitting over 10 meters per second there, like consistently week in week out, and you're just going like,
Mm-hmm.
what is going on? Like, you'd have loved to seen if they were maybe nurtured down that direction of going on a track or what it was where they could get to, but the same way even with like long distance running or middle distance running too. Like I'd say you could probably pick 10 county players at the minute who would probably, if they had been trained that way, would thrive in that sort of environment too. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's mad. Like
It's
it,
like
it
those
is
lads
mental.
whenever the lockdowns hit, and those lads going out and running 5Ks in 17 and 18 minutes who'd never run 5K before, and you're going, Jesus, I'm training away here for it and can't hit that. Uh, but
I know.
yeah, it's great that actually, in one way, it is great that the GA is so dominant, because it probably leads to such a high quality sport, in that athletes of all different types, and of extremely high quality, are coming to play this one game together. And yeah, there's debates about how much that actually gets exposed in the modern game in terms of their ability to express that athleticism, but it's still there, I suppose, to be seen. Finish off with a few sort of maybe more say quick fire, but don't necessarily have to be quick fire questions. But what sport would you, if there is one, would you like? And maybe we've already touched on it, but would you like to explore down the line, if there is one?
If there is one.
Or we can say,
Um,
if GA wasn't on the table.
if GA was on the table, yeah, I was thinking
Yeah,
the like
yeah.
retirement age there. I was like, I was going, what would the body be fit for once and done? Probably probably would like to just try my hand at more when I was younger. Like I played obviously football, played hurling, played soccer, did a wee bit of boxing. Would maybe like to explore that a bit more. Like the boxing, jiu-jitsu is obviously the big one at the minute. That would be interesting. But I'd say probably athletics, maybe a bit of rugby
Hmm.
would have been nice to try. Like I always liked the idea of rugby, but not from South Belfast, so there was no chance of that.
Would you have a favorite athlete of all time?
Favorite athlete. Probably sports person. I always say Dan Carter. Like, big fan of the All Blacks. Him, Sonny Bill Williams. Just big fan of the All Blacks. Watching them growing up was class. Um, Trying to think. Yeah, probably have to go with them. There's no one's jumping out of me at the minute.
If you had three gym exercises that were the only three you were allowed to do for the rest of your, I say, for the rest of your training career.
Um, Probably pull up for the upper body. I actually made a video on that
I
the other
did.
day, so I have to stand by my words. Uh, a pull up for the upper body. Probably go for a some sort of prowler push and bicep curls.
So is there like a zero lower body strength going on there? Fair enough.
We go heavy,
So
go heavy prowler. You can
uh,
go
you've
fast,
gone for like
whatever.
two bicep involved exercises out of the three that you're allowed to take. Fair enough. The If you had one sprinting cue that you were allowed to give, what would it be?
One. Um, Probably attack the ground. That's my
Nice.
favorite one.
The What advice would you give for a young coach, say, 20 years old, 18, 20 years old, coming in to wanting to make something of themselves with their career?
Get as much experience as you can early doors. Coach your friends for free, family for free. Learn from whoever you can. Listen to podcasts. Read books. I'm sure there's probably, I'm not a big man in reading books. I was early on, but I think you can read all the books in the world, but if you're not actually implementing it, like that's the main thing. Learn from anyone that you can. Like I'll learn so much more from either having a coach actually coach me, see how the process goes, and see like how the body actually responds to it over time. Mentorships, podcasts, like the information is like couldn't be more readily accessible or available. But it's like what you actually do with that, like put it into practice, put it to the test, see what works, refine it over time, see what you like, see what you don't like. I think with the whole social media stuff as well, like it can be easy to get caught up in like, right, this is going to happen overnight, or people are taking off left, right, and center. But I think yes, it's probably needed the degree, and I probably would like if I was to start off today again, and I was just trying to get into social media, I'd be like, right, where to even start with this? But I think it's just remembering what the actual primary goal is and what the actual main thing is, and it's like it's coaching people, it's getting results, and it's impacting whoever it is you're deciding to work with. It's not to blow up on social media and take off on social media, and as you say, be like an influencer. Yes, it can have its perks at times, but it's when it comes back to being a coach, you enjoy doing what you do, you enjoy getting people results, you enjoy helping people. So that's everything you're doing is coming back to that idea of getting people towards where they want to be, and you playing a role in that. Like, so education as much as possible, practice, build your knowledge, build your experience as much as possible. On social media, like understand the people that you're working with, understand their struggles, show that you have the solution, and show that you can get results. And repeat.
I would definitely double down on that. I'm sure you and I know as well plenty of coaches with viral videos and lots of followers and struggling to actually sustain the coaching business. And then you've got people on the other side that either even don't have a social media presence or very little, and are doing what they want to do day in, day out. So as you say, focus on the fundamentals of what do you want to help people with, learn how to do that, and I suppose on the other end show proof that you've been able to do it. So last sort of question would be, if you could have a coffee and chat with 3 people, dead or alive, for a coffee and chat, who would they be?
50 Cent. If you haven't read his book, it's unbelievable. I listen to it because it's him actually talking about it. I think he's class. 50 Cent. It's a tough one now. I have to use my 3 wisely. Probably Joe Rogan. Just I'm sure he can chat about anything. Like, I don't even listen to him too much, but I'm sure it'd be an interesting conversation. And one more. Probably McGregor, just to see what the man's like.
It would be a very macho conversation. It would just be UFC. I don't know what else would be on, but it'd be interesting combo.
100%. I'll swap Joe Rogan for Dr. Dre.
Interesting. What's it? Yeah. What do you like? What do you like for Dr. Dre? Music side, or because I don't know. I don't think he's a massive. You don't see him You don't see him online too much, but.
Yeah, it's the whole between him and 50 Cent, just the whole background to where they are now, like transitioning from running about the streets or whatever, gangs and all that, to like dominating in music, and I suppose the business stuff that's came off the back of it. Just anything I've watched them and anything I've listened to them, I just think they're just, I don't know, they're so switched on. Like before I looked into them, it was just like, right, just classic music or whatever it is, and then you actually realise there's a lot of thought and tactical side of things that goes on behind it, and they've obviously played the game really well. So I suppose just I think it's just nice. They're operators like so it. That'll be good. And then just because he's a
something might kick off there. I'd say. Very good. So just as a final thing, I want to allow you to tell people where they can go to find out more or follow you.
So McCabe 11 on Instagram. That is where I'm most active. And you'll find anything you want on there. On YouTube as well. So trying to plug that a wee bit and build that up. So I think it's McCabe 11 on YouTube as well. So but go on to my Instagram, you'll find whatever you need.
Great stuff. Thanks for listening, and if you consider yourself an everyday athlete, whether you play sport or want to pursue other athletic goals, consider checking out the Everyday Athlete program at the link in the episode description. There you'll find what's involved in the program, testimonials from the lads we work with, and how to apply.